Hello, listeners. I'm Timstradamus, and it's Friday. And with me, as always, is my talented and beautiful co-hostess, Voyse.
Good morning, Timstradamus, and welcome to all our listeners. Timstradamus, would you like to hear a fall joke?
Give it to me.
Why are dads so good at fall puns?
Because they're punnily clad. Did I get it?
Because they're really corny.
Yes, we are. For new listeners, Voyse and I enjoy reading and talking about stories from the internet that are interesting, funny, and dramatic. Because of our love of stories, we've come together and created this challenge to share with you those experiences.
And hopefully give you some funny things to think about.
So, Voyse, what have you slopped together today for me?
It's because I told you that I put together something that's absolutely crazy. Well, I decided to craft for you a brew that has licorice root, cinnamon, orange peel, vanilla, cinnamon, clove, and cardamom.
Ooh. Oh.
Oh no, is it too licoricey?
The licorice. Yeah. That's a 2 out of 5.
It is a schlop.
No. Ooh, it's still good.
I guess if you like licorice.
If you love licorice, that's your thing.
Well, while Timstradamus tries to down his brew, let us go ahead and delve into these stories. For any listeners wanting to follow along, all story links are in the description below. For our first story.
Friday.
Am I the a-hole for telling my husband he is an idiot and threatening to divorce him for co-signing on a $1 million home that isn't ours? My husband, 38 male, and I, 39 female, have been happily married for a little over 2 years. We own a home and do quite well for ourselves financially. He generally maintains the finances for our family. My husband's mother and sister live a few hours away, and I have always felt they were very abusive towards him. They speak down to him, disrespect him, and essentially make him feel as if it's his responsibility to clean up their financial mishaps and their poor choices. Now to the AITA part. My husband's sister and mother have been renting a home from another family member well under market value, at least $3,000 less than what it would rent for now. The owner/family member has decided to sell the home. Mind you, it has been trashed and not maintained by the sister and mother. They have little to no respect for the fact that they have had it so good for so long. The owner gave them 90 days to vacate the premises. Immediately, the sister and mother began asking my husband to help them buy a home. They live and work in one of the most expensive housing markets in the U.S. Additionally, they do not qualify for the type and amount of loan that they would need to even buy a modest home in the area, and they refuse to move to a more affordable area, lower credit score, no major assets, etc. After a lot of back and forth, they finally asked my husband to co-sign on a very basic older home that costs $1 million. My immediate reaction was to tell them absolutely not, and I voiced my concerns to my husband. He is usually very level-headed and financially savvy. But I had to be the one to push him and his family for some sort of plan of how this would all work. To go from paying $1,000 a month in rent to well over $6,000 a month on a mortgage, not even including bills, seems questionable at best and a terrible decision at worst. I asked my husband why they can't move into a modest apartment and make a plan to buy it in a year or two, but he didn't really have an answer, but agreed that they absolutely need a plan in order for him to engage. Again, after several weeks of back and forth with his family, they have yet to provide any solid plan on how they would pay the mortgage, bills, and avoid default. Who would be responsible for repairs? No idea. Finally, last week, before I left for a work trip, my husband told me that he would not be co-signing on the home and that they had done zero planning. I was so relieved and was able to relax on my trip. Well, I returned home at the end of the week and was taking a shower when he walks in and tells me he co-signed for the home. To say I was taken aback is an understatement. I went through all the range of emotions in a short amount of time, but it wasn't until the next morning that what he had done had really hit me. He chose to make a risky investment with people who don't respect him and did it behind my back after assuring me he wouldn't. He kept trying to tell me I was safe from any potential impact, but I don't understand how that could be. I asked him to walk me through the conversation, the plans, and any assurance that our own assets were safe. He couldn't. He then had the audacity to tell me, "At least I decided to tell you." That is when I lost it. I felt absolutely betrayed and disrespected. I cried and screamed and told him how he cannot see how they use him. I told him I was questioning his integrity and our relationship. We are also in the midst of an IVF process, and it has been extremely hard on me and my body. I told him I didn't think he deserved to be the father of my children, and if we did have children, his family would have limited contact and not allowed around my children. There are other incidents of how they have treated me with such disrespect that even I have distanced myself from them. That is also another reason why my husband decided for us to move away from them. Back to the subject, at first he was remorseful, but then he got defensive of his family, even though myself and many others have tried to tell him how abusive they are. I told him if he wanted any chance of making our relationship right, he was to immediately work with his mother and sister to write a contract that he had majority ownership in the home so that if they continued to make poor decisions in default, he could sell the house. Well, to no one's surprise, his family would not agree to these terms because they believe living there is enough to solidify it's theirs. For the last 3 days, I have asked over and over again why he made this drastic decision without a plan. My friends agree that this is a divorce-worthy offense. But the reality is, besides this, we have a wonderful life together and I love him dearly. So Reddit, am I the a-hole for calling my husband stupid and threatening divorce over co-signing the loan? Some additional details for anyone interested. His sister is actually older than him. He has managed to keep his financial success fairly well hidden from his family, but due to the co-sign process, they now know exactly what assets he has, and I am certain they will expect more from him. Before asking my husband to co-sign, they didn't even attempt to take out the loan for the home on their own. I assume they expect that having him on the loan will give them carte blanche on destroying the home or defaulting on the loan because he will pay in order not to fuck up his own credit and assets. His family does not care for me and are likely jealous at the life I have with my husband and how they get less from him. Though my husband maintains the finances, we bring in roughly the same in income, so this is not a case of my husband having full control over financial choices. Am I the a-hole?
What a mess. We're dealing with what I'm certain a lot of people unfortunately have to deal with in their life when it comes to family and being mistreated or there being a weird complex there. In this case, our OP's husband has a mother and sister that have proven beyond that they cannot handle basic things, such as the upkeep of a home. Can we not talk about the fact that they paid $1,000 a month for rent?
For a $3,000 home? Correct, yes.
To be in a $1,000 rental in a nice part of town for however many years they got given that gift. What? And then to mistreat the home that you're living in to the point where the owners, which are family members, said, look, we're selling the home. They don't even want to deal with that anymore. They're just going to sell it. They gave you their 90 days, move on. I'm assuming that the mother and the sister are both working.
In order to pay $1,000 a month, yeah.
Now that we know all that backstory. So what's perplexing to me at this point is ROP says her husband is being coerced into being a co-signer for $1 million home that he probably knows that his mother and sister could not afford on their own. They go from $1,000 a month to $6,000. That's a lot of money to pay all of a sudden. But there's no plan put in place for any of this. She's being very logical about the situation. This has happened over a period of 3 months, 90 days to figure all this out. They're 38 and 39. Why can't you have these conversations with each other? Why over the phone on a week-long vacation or work trip, whatever she was doing, couldn't you have contacted your wife and gone, hey, by the way, I'm actually starting to have a change of heart here. I do want to co-sign. You couldn't have at least given her that? Especially since you guys are working on creating a family together? That's a big deal. And the ramifications of that falling out, that will hurt for a minute. Then he just goes, by the way, I signed for it while she's taking a shower. I don't know how many people would have kept their cool in that situation. If this is what he thinks is acceptable to do while you guys are trying to create a family by putting your future in peril, this would be grounds for talking about a divorce. Your partner's going to have to know about $1 million co-signing. That's not something you can hide. And he doubles down on all of it and goes, well, at least I told you.
Oh, yeah, no. That's...
There's a lot of bad here. So you're definitely not the a-hole, OP. It's a scary situation, though.
Well, our consensus on Reddit is that our OP is definitely not the a-hole. In fact, the ramifications of all of this is crazy, especially considering that Redditors put it into really good perspective. Her husband didn't put them with a $1 million investment. Her husband put them into $1 million worth of debt that he has no ownership of. And on top of that, when it comes to marriage, that's not just his debt. Sure, it's his name, but by law, that is their debt.
Yep.
If something happens, it happens to the two of them, and both of them are responsible for this. To make this clear for all listeners out there, when you get married and your partner buys a car, that doesn't become just their car. That is your guys' car together. Marriage-wise, that's what owning things jointly means. That's what a marriage is. And it doesn't happen with all the stuff that you guys get. It happens with everything, including all the bad. That includes all the debt. Additionally, they say, look, honestly, this is grounds to not be married. This is such a huge decision. Co-signing on a home takes months of background and research on all parties that are going to go ahead and get this home and get this loan. Your husband did this well before then. Well
That's
before
true.
he signed his name on that piece of paper. This wasn't a on-the-cuff decision. This was a plan in the works. He told you because it was something that he wasn't going to be able to hide from you. Now, individuals are saying you need to make sure to pull out $1 million or $2 million insurance policy on him. Not to in the hopes that he'll pass away. Heaven forbid. Nobody would ever wish that. But if you're going through divorce proceedings, because that liability falls on you, because the debt is split between the two of you, and should anything happen to him, you're due for that. So make sure that you get a life insurance policy on him. And then when you get the divorce proceedings, that life insurance policy can go away, because then it becomes all of his problem, all of his debt, and it no longer falls to you. But protect yourself, because anything can happen at this point that can jeopardize your future, your financial security, and that debt will fall to you where you won't be able to manage two households.
I mean, can you imagine the type of stress she's under now? Because not only is she going through trying to get pregnant, that was supposed to be, she found the person that she's making this family with, they've been married for 2 years. They're getting into their 40s now, so nothing's promised at that point. But when you're putting the proverbial all the eggs in the basket at that point, all of it is up in the air now. Like it's a wild prospect to have your life just turned upside down with people that don't even live in your home.
Let me go ahead and quote one of our Redditors. Her husband royally forked her over.
Yeah.
Well, let's go ahead and walk into our next situation and see if I can get your perspective on this. Am I the a-hole for saying I would disown my daughter over piercings? My 55 female, daughter, 17 female, has moved out of province for university. She's been mentioning piercings for a while, and I told her I would disown her if she got them. A few days ago, my daughter sent me pictures of piercings she just got. She said she was really sorry, but she has been wanting to do this for a long time. She asked me if I would still love her. I said of course, but why would she be willing to throw away our relationship over holes in her body? If she got them, that means she didn't love me enough to be scared of losing a relationship. I mentioned this to my oldest daughter, 26 female, who lives with me. She said that her sister had contacted her a few days before in a panic over how I would react. I asked my eldest daughter why my youngest would be willing to throw away a relationship with me after everything we've been through, but also why my youngest would think I would ever stop loving her. My eldest paused and looked at me with, I guess, bewilderment, and said it's because I said I would disown her. I told her I just said that to scare my youngest, because as a parent, it's my job to discourage her from doing stupid things. Find me a parent who doesn't talk like that to their kids, and at least other kids listen. My eldest rolled her eyes and said we aren't other people. I told her I'm a human being and I have the right to be angry and have boundaries. She said, as a parent, I have the obligation to model healthy communication instead of manipulation. I told her that manipulation is part of being a family. Babies manipulate their parents by crying when they don't get what they want. My eldest stared at me for a long time and then just laughed and said that explained a lot about me. She said babies manipulating, she used air quotes, their parents because they have no form of emotional regulation isn't the same as a parent manipulating their child with threats and lies and being surprised that their children start to be afraid of their parents. She's always bringing up this weak Western parenting stuff, and she's always twisting things in her head because she's sensitive and vindictive towards me for perceived slights I've made towards her. My eldest said, "Why did you ask me if I know nothing? Right before you brought this up, you said you were reflecting on how it is that your children can both care for you and resent you." And I told her they're adults now, so I don't care how they live their lives. She said, obviously you do, otherwise you wouldn't be saying things like we're disrespecting you and trying to end the relationship by doing things that don't even concern you. She then got up, said goodnight, and went to bed. Usually, my eldest is mature enough to sit through a conversation like an adult, even if she gets emotional. I was surprised, and now I'm wondering if I actually did something wrong, but she has no right to tell me how to parent. Am I the a-hole?
Merlin's left testicle.
Magical.
Not so much. ROP is a perfect example of what you should not do while you're parenting. In this case, we see where ROP has held on so tightly that the second her 17-year-old daughter gets away from the home, she goes and does what she wants to go do. And I'm shocked at 55 that she has the viewpoint she does on parenting. She has another child, I think, right?
A 26-year-old.
How have you not learned the lessons already? You are 100% the a-hole in this situation. Hopefully you take a step back and give yourself some introspection, though, because this is a wild story. And if you think that you're above reproach, especially when it comes to dealing with people, I don't care if you're their parent or not being able to be held accountable is probably your biggest sin here.
Well, our consensus on Reddit is that our OP is definitely the a-hole. And our OP went on a full tangent throughout all the comment section regarding her life and her viewpoints. As far as I can read into this, our OP is a very manipulative and narcissistic person. Let me go ahead and delve into everything. So first things first, Redditors were very upset. Babies, manipulative? That's their form of communicating with you as you're their parent, and they need whatever they need, whether it's a cleaning or sustenance. To view a small child one that doesn't have words to form to let you know how they're feeling, as manipulative, is a very twisted way of viewing the world. And this twisted view, as I said, kind of permeates in all the conversation that our OP has with Redditors. In one of them, a commenter actually tells them, you need to seek help. You need therapy. This is important. In fact, our OP says it in one comment, I was in therapy, stopped because learned all I needed to. My kids weren't really a subject because, like I said, I finished raising them. However, they feel it is their business, but I can't go back in time and give them more structure or show them that I'm actually overly nice to them compared to other families. My kids are in therapy. My youngest just lies to her therapist because she likes being able to say she's in therapy, but not working on the issue she has. My oldest spends her time whining about me from what I know. She's using me as an excuse to waste her life away playing victim all day in her room. I didn't actually do anything that they would need healing from if they stopped taking everything so personally.
Oh no.
Additionally, let me go ahead and read to you this next insert from our OP. No, he was a licensed psychotherapist. He did tell me I was apathetic and experiencing care burnout. I can't demonize them if they're objectively wrong. For example, neither of them did anything for me on Mother's Day. My youngest tried to offer to wash the dishes while I was already washing them, so I just told her I was handling it. My eldest didn't say anything. It was only the next day that my eldest came to me with a gift and apologized and said it was delivered late. But the damage was already done. I told my therapist how badly this hurt me, and he told me to scold my kids. I didn't even end up scolding them because I didn't want to hold a grudge. I just brought it up to my eldest in a joking way, and she got mad and said, why would you tell your therapist I didn't do anything for Mother's Day when I explained and apologized that the gift was late? I have done something for you every Mother's Day except for one, and that still isn't enough for you? Why is that the thing you take to your therapist? Are you serious? So basically, she was invalidating how I was feeling and taking the joke too seriously, again, to avoid taking accountability. I told my therapist about this, and he said my eldest doesn't have the right to comment on my sessions and she was out of line. She also saw another therapist who told her she should be grateful to me. I feel as if our OP is very manipulative. When you tell a child that you're going to disown them or you're not going to love them as much because they're not going to follow what you say, that's manipulative to do.
Sure.
And that definitely undermines the structure of love and support that you should have for your children as a parent. I feel as if our OP or one of those individuals that has utilized therapeutic sessions to weaponize it against their children. And it feels as if they're trying to throw that back on every one of the commenters that are essentially telling them our OP is wrong.
Can't be held accountable.
Well, I wish them all the best. And if they do see this post, I think that they should know this is not a healthy way to have a relationship. And you should really, really create some distance between you and your mother. Sometimes space and distance offers perspective and time to heal properly.
For both of you.
Well, that was a bit of a mess. Let's go to our next story, and I want to see if I can eat some vegan food. Am I the a-hole for telling my vegan sister she can't serve only vegan food at our family reunion? Hey, y'all.
Hey, yo.
I'm genuinely torn about this and need some clarity. Every year, our family has a reunion where different members host. This year, it's my younger sister's turn. She's been vegan for about 3 years and is quite passionate about it. We all respect her choices and make sure there are a good variety of vegan options whenever we have family gatherings. When she announced she'll be hosting, she also said that the entire menu would be vegan to align with her beliefs and that it's a chance for the family to try something different. Some family members were excited, but others, including many of the older folks, were pretty upset and felt like they were being forced into her lifestyle, even if just for one meal. I spoke to her privately and asked if she'd be open to including a few non-vegan dishes for those who aren't keen on a full vegan menu. She got quite defensive, saying this was her chance to showcase veganism and that for one meal everyone can give it a go. I respect her beliefs, but I also think that forcing an entire family to adopt her choices, even if just for one meal, isn't fair. She's now upset with me for not being supportive and says I'm not respecting her choices. Am I the a-hole?
So, vegans, let's have this conversation, because even we've had this within our lives. Voyse had to switch over to a not fully vegan, but a decently 75%,
80% vegan diet.
And that happened a number of years ago now, but we've had to learn how to adapt and open our eyes and hearts to different ways of eating.
And we've had to learn to find a good balance.
And that's the key here, is balance. Now, ROP says that they're on a rotational pick of who gets to host the family reunion type meal every year.
Correct.
Now, this year, ROP's sister,
his younger sister,
is the one that volunteered for it. She's super happy to show everyone in the family how she eats and cooks. That's fantastic. Voyse does the exact same thing. To the point where, I think, was it a year or two ago, she cooked all the sides for our Thanksgiving family meal. And this has been the first time a large part of our family was introduced to that type of food. And they ended up loving it. So much so that that's just kind of something that we continue to do. It's basically one meal that they're sharing. She wants to show off what she's been doing and learning in the vegan world. Initially, maybe my mind would wander into how about we find a compromise? If she doesn't want to cook the meat, or if she has some allergy or something we don't know about, which keeps her from being around the meat, why can't then people bring whatever they choose, like a potluck situation, into this thing? But I can also understand as a rational person that it is one meal. We're not asking for them to go a full week without eating meat. You could have supported your family member and not made a bigger deal about it. If you really felt that adversely to not being able to have meat at this one get together, you could have pre-gamed it. You could have quietly done your own thing and then shown up and enjoyed some vegan stuff. I think at the end of the day, she was just really hyped to show everyone in her family, no different than Voyse gets around the holidays. I can't tell you how many sides and desserts and stuff she's brought to the table that everyone might have looked sideways at a couple years back. But now it's become more of a, well, what's Voyse going to do this year?
It's always got to be something different and fun.
And they're crazy delicious. I do understand, though. It takes time and everyone has to grow at their own pace. But when you talk about this circumstance, it's one meal you're sharing. It's at someone's house that's hosting it. You can afford to miss one meal without meat, if really that's where you're going to stick your foot in. So that kind of leads me to my answer to this is you're definitely the a-hole in my opinion.
So the consensus on Reddit is that our OP is the a-hole. And it really is, as you've expressed it, it's only for one meal. And Redditors did point out that people could bring their own foods if it was okay from the host, if it's something that the host does not want to make. If they have an aversion to actually making animal bypass products inside their food. I can understand this as it just sounds like our OP sister just wants to introduce their family, especially the older generations, to different tastes.
It just sounds like people need to take a step back and really let the sister show off what she has for one meal. Just keep your mind open to different experiences.
Well, let's go to our very last story, Timstradamus, and see if I can leave us with a bang.
Let's go.
Am I the a-hole for cheating on my husband with my coworker?
Why is this on here?
Many people in my life have said I'm wrong for this, so I wanted others' opinions. I, 30 female, have been married to my husband, let's call him Damien, 32 male, for 7 years.
You're wrong.
Our marriage wasn't like most people I know. We only got married because he got me pregnant and needed to step up as the father. We met each other in college and we started off as friends, but eventually I started developing feelings for him. He was dating a girl at that time and they would argue a lot. Every time they would argue, Damien would come to me for comfort. I didn't mind because the person I liked relied on me. One night, they broke up, and he got me pregnant. Although it was pretty clear he didn't love me and didn't want a child by me, he stepped up and married me. My husband was getting his PhD and was working in the hospital, so money wasn't an issue. Because of the baby, I had to drop out of college, and once I was able to work, I decided to apply as a kindergarten teacher, although my husband didn't think it was necessary. Our marriage was unhappy. We never made love after I had my son, and it was constant arguing. He would belittle me and remind me how I was just a pick-me-up. I want to also add that I'm vegan, and ever since I married him, I had to quit because he didn't want to eat a salad for dinner every day. While working at the elementary school, I met a friend I'll call Brandon. Brandon was the kindest person I've ever met. He would check up on me and make sure I'm okay. We'd go on picnics together with our kids. He has one daughter, and since we were both vegan, he'd give me some vegan recipes. Brandon made me feel true happiness, unlike my husband, and I was starting to fall in love with him. One day, we were eating brunch, and he admitted to having feelings for me. I told him I liked him too, but admittedly couldn't leave my husband considering he overpowers me financially. Brandon said he didn't care and still loved me and would start hooking up after that. One night, me and Damien did the nasty for once, and I got pregnant. I wasn't happy, but he was overjoyed. I felt guilty because I realized how much of a partner he was and fell out of love with him. Out of guilt, I admitted I cheated on him. And of course he wanted a divorce. He was angry even though he's never shown any love to me. He also didn't believe the baby was his and understandably asked for a DNA test once the baby was born. We had gotten a divorce, and Brandon had let me move in with him and his daughter. Given Damien's wealth, the courts gave him full custody of our son, and I had visitation. Once my daughter was born, we got the DNA test, and Damien found out she was his. He also demanded custody of her, but I just gave him visitation. Now that my life has settled down, I decided to tell my friends and family about this, and they all called me the a-hole. So, am I the a-hole?
What a spice of meatball. So this is how I'll kind of tackle this story. There's never a good reason to cheat. If you really did feel the things you felt in your relationship with your husband, you should have just left. When you're not feeling the love or when it's toxic the way she says it was. Because being called the pick-me-up, that should have ended there. There's no respect in that relationship. Now, she does say it, though. The only reason why she stayed around in the relationship was because, financially, he was taking care of her, if I understand correctly.
Correct.
I guess I'll wrap it up like this. You cheated on your husband with a man who was aware of your marital status. Understand that you'll lose them how you get them. If he has the moral compass that told him it was okay to cheat with a married woman, do you really think you're getting into something that's actually good? Was that foundation created on something positive?
Not necessarily, no.
That's where I say that you may look at him and found someone that you loved and that showed you what a relationship could be, and you felt really good in it. And that's fantastic. But what you should have done at that point, instead of using him because it sounded like you used him as a branch, you were secure in knowing that he was going to let you live there. So it was then okay to leave your husband.
Correct.
Morally, do you have a leg to stand on here? I am sorry that you felt that you were being abused and you were in a loveless relationship.
And that you were trapped.
But you weren't really.
You were just finding an excuse not to leave because you wanted to keep using one person that had something that you didn't, which was money.
And that's where, OP, you are 100% an a-hole. And no excuse you can give me in life will ever make it okay for someone to cheat on their spouse. And the fact that your, boyfriend was okay with doing it, he's suspect too. He should have been man enough to wait if he loved you that much. At the end of the day, I'm happy you found your way out of a loveless relationship, but the way you went about it was wrong.
Well, the consensus on Reddit is that our OP is definitely the a-hole. And Let me go ahead and read to you an update by our OP. Our OP says, so I've been reading your guys' comments and the majority of you have been saying I'm the a-hole. Reading the replies, a part of me feels even more guilt because instead of just filing for a divorce or talking with Damien, I decided to sleep with someone else. But another part of me doesn't regret it. Brandon and I have been talking and he's helped me through this situation. I don't regret falling in love with Brandon. I don't regret cheating. What I do regret is still sleeping with my husband while sleeping with Brandon. I became selfish and continued staying with Damien because he makes more money than me, and because of that, I've brung my children into this drama. To clarify things for those who are calling this story fake or confused about some things, the reason I was able to get custody of our daughter, but not our son, is because we didn't go through the courts. Given that she was a newborn, he agreed to let me keep her. And for people who are confused about how he works and was getting a PhD, a basic Google search would help you understand that he was working in the hospital while continuing his degree. And how do I become a teacher? Again, use basic common sense. And you guys have clearly never been through a custody battle considering you don't know how it works. I only decided to post my story on Reddit because I truly believe I did nothing wrong. People are saying it doesn't matter because you cheated aren't in my shoes. If you had the choice between struggling or living a good life, wouldn't you choose to live a good life? I was just a college student who was eating out of a hot pocket and struggling to keep up with classes. Until I met Brandon, I only wanted what was best for my son, a stable family. But once I met Brandon, he made me see that I don't care about wealth. I just wanted to feel loved and happy. Given how all of your comments are, I don't think it'd matter how terrible of a husband Brandon is. You would have still put the blame on me because I cheated. I already told too much to social media, so I won't dwell on what happened in between the marriage and the divorce. I'll start replying to comments instead of making another post. I have a baby and other things to worry about instead of arguing with people on Reddit. Additionally, our OP put in the comments section, unlike my husband, Brandon gives me a reason not to cheat, and I love him for that.
Oh, man. Everyone's out to feel what they feel. I'm not saying that she's wrong for that, but you have some really questionable morals.
I'll say it like this. There is never, ever a good reason to cheat. You have 101 reasons to walk away from bad situations. It's whether you have the gumption to go ahead and do what needs to be done. Our OP didn't. Instead, what she did is she used one person till she got to another person that she could use, because that's all that Brandon is. And that last comment that I read to you just goes ahead and cements that in. If Brandon loses his usefulness, if for whatever reason she starts wavering in how she thinks she feels for Brandon and the love and support that apparently he gives to her, she'll bounce ship to the next person that she can.
Well, for her, it just sounds like she was never able to take responsibility for things, and it was always someone else's fault as to the reason she's in situations.
Well, here, she puts everything on Brandon. Brandon told me that what I did was right, that falling in love with him wasn't wrong, therefore cheating was right. No, cheating was not right. You're allowed to feel your feelings. The moment that you felt that you were not in love with your husband anymore, you should have left him. That way, when you found Brandon, you guys could have loved each other freely, and that love wouldn't be riddled with a bunch of guilt.
Although it was fun to watch her try to make the math make sense, those mental gymnastics must have really hurt.
2 + 2 = 12, Timstradamus. Didn't you know that?
Yes, of course. Well, was that our last story?
That was our last story.
Okay. Very dramatic ending to a Friday.
Yes, I decided to leave the best for last this time.
I think you did. Well, as our stories come to a close, don't forget, you've seen the world what you carry in your heart.
If you have enjoyed listening to us read and talk about today's stories, please rate, subscribe, or follow, and turn on notifications for new content. We regularly post on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. We would also love to give our heartfelt thanks to all of our patrons and your support.
Yes, love and appreciate every single one of y'all.
We would also love to hear your viewpoints in these stories in the comment section below.
And as always, listeners, I'll leave you the question I always do every Friday. What are the weekend plans?
We're excited because we have a couple days off that we're going to spend with family for Thanksgiving. So we got to actually put the menu together.
Yep, got to start doing that. And remember, if you post it, maybe we'll see it on the internet.